Have you ever got a letter that made your heart spin? Mine came on a quiet Wednesday, and I still remember the cold wind that shook the mailbox. My hands trembled as I pulled out the pale envelope. I knew something big was coming. Want more? Please like and drop a comment if you want more revenge stories like this on YouTube. Don't subscribe yet. I'll give you more only if you ask. Here's the hero of our tale in just 3 lines. Jessica turned 33 this spring. She grew up in Redwood Hollow, a small place where secrets hide behind every tree. For 3 decades, her family kept her at arm's length until one letter changed everything. Jessica stared at the paper in front of her. The words were neat and cold. Don't try coming to the family reunion. Below, in her father's familiar scrawl, he added, Understood. Her mind spun back to every birthday he missed, every phone call he never answered, and how he walked away when she needed him most. She folded the letter carefully and set it on the kitchen table. The pale light from the window made the ink look as cruel as ice. A few days before, she thought everything was normal. She woke up early, brewed her coffee, and dressed in her favorite blue dress, one that reminded her of warm summer days with her mom. Then she saw the mail slot push open. She sat on the small wooden chair by the table and took a deep breath. How many times had she dreamed of this moment, writing back to him, finally telling him how he made her feel? But the words on the page weren't hers. They were his command, his twist in a game she didn't even know she was playing. She stared out at the tall pines of Redwood Hollow, quiet witnesses to her whole life. When she was a little girl, she used to race between these trees, laughing with her cousins, believing her dad loved her. But as she grew older, the laughter faded and the trees grew darker in her memory. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Mara, her best friend since childhood. Mara was always there through the highs and lows. The message read, You okay? You sound off today. Jessica tapped out a quick reply, Just a headache. I'll call you tonight. She couldn't tell Mara about the letter, not yet. At work, Jessica tried to focus. She was a librarian at the town library, guiding curious kids through dusty shelves and helping seniors find old photo albums. She loved her job because it felt safe, pages of stories, each waiting to be unlocked. But all she could think about was her father's note. During lunch, she stepped into the sunlit courtyard behind the library. Birds flitted between branches. A sparrow landed on her shoulder as if whispering, Be brave. She closed her eyes and let the gentle warmth soothe her. Later that afternoon, she found herself in the children's section. A group of little ones clustered around, listening to her read about a lost puppy finding its way home. Their wide eyes and eager smiles gave her a spark of joy. For a moment, she forgot the letter. She remembered why she believed in kindness. After work, she walked past the old stone church, where the reunion would be held next weekend if she dared go. Banners and folding chairs were already being set up, bright and cheerful. She felt a hollow ache in her chest. She pressed her palm to one cool stone pillar and whispered, Why does he hate me so much? Back home, she spread the letter and envelopes on the table. The reunion was a big deal. Photos, hugs, old friends gathering to share pie and stories under sunny skies. She could almost smell the apple pie and hear the laughter echoing off the church walls. Now it would be empty without her. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from her cousin, Tom. Don't forget, family reunion this Saturday. Mom asked. Be there. Jessica's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Could she send him the letter? Or would that break her heart in front of him, too? She tapped out, Can't make it. She slid the chair back, heart pounding. The sun was setting, painting the sky in streaks of red and gold. She gathered the envelopes and headed to the desk drawer. There, she kept a small box of letters and cards, memories of love and loss. She slipped her father's note inside and closed the drawer with a gentle click. For dinner, she made tomato soup and toast. She sipped slowly, the warmth filling her belly but not her heart. Outside, a storm was rolling in, distant rumbles of thunder echoing through the trees. The wind rattled the windows, and Jessica felt its chill all the way inside. As night fell, she curled up on the couch with her laptop. She opened the camera to record a message for her YouTube channel, where she shared happy stories, small acts of kindness, and tips for finding hope in dark times. She hit record and smiled softly. "Hi, sweet friends," she began. "Today I want to remind you how powerful a kind word can be. But sometimes people we love don't treat us kindly. Next week, I won't be at my family reunion, but I want you to know this. You deserve respect and love always. Stay strong." She ended the recording and saved the file. In the dark room, her face glowed in the screen light. She felt both proud and scared. She knew this video would help someone out there. But what about her? Then she heard the first crack of thunder right above her house. Lights flickered. Jessica jumped. She pressed pause on the video and reached for the letter on the table. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows so hard she thought they might break. She opened the envelope again. Her father's words seemed louder now. Understood. Why did those two words hurt so much? She traced the letters with her finger. She wanted to cry, but there was no more tears left. Suddenly, the thunder rattled the roof. Power cut. Jessica sat in darkness, heart racing. In that moment, she made a choice. She would not hide. She would use her anger and pain to fuel her plan. She would make him see the hurt he caused. Her hand shook as she picked up her phone and drafted a new text, one she would send in the morning. But before she could finish, a sharp knock came at the door. Jessica's breath caught in her throat. Who could it be in this storm? She rose from the couch, each step heavy. The second knock came, louder and more urgent. Jessica's heart pounded. She moved to the peephole and peered out, but the hallway light had gone out. Pitch black. She backed away. The knock turned into pounding. Jessica felt a cold sweat. She grabbed the letter from the table and clutched it. She thought of every hurt, every wound her father opened. She knew this was just the start. And then the downstairs window shattered with a crash, sending shards of glass skittering across the floor. Jessica screamed as a dark shape moved inside. The dark shape moved fast, silent and heavy, slipping through the broken window like a shadow made of smoke. Jessica froze, her heart pounding so loud she thought it might burst. The wind howled outside, rattling the house, and rain lashed at the remaining glass. For a moment, everything went still. Only the drip of water from a broken pane and Jessica's ragged breathing filled the room. Then the shape lunged. Jessica let out a scream and stumbled backward. She tripped over the coffee table and hit the floor hard, the letter slipping from her hand. It fluttered away, landing face down on the rug. A second later, the shape hovered over her, tall and silent, its face hidden in darkness. Jessica's eyes darted around. There was nothing she could use to fight. No lamp, no heavy book, nothing but that pale letter lying inches away. She reached for the letter with a shaking hand. The shape leaned closer, and for a moment, Jessica could see its eyes, two dark holes that felt like they were swallowing light. She yanked the letter toward her and ripped it into pieces, feeling the old wound in her chest open raw and painful. In that instant, the shape recoiled and let out a low, rattling howl that sounded like a lost soul crying. It stumbled away from her, as if burned by the words tearing in its heart. The crash of thunder came right on its heels, as if the storm itself had answered her cry. Lightning lit the room in bright white flashes, giving Jessica quick glimpses of the shape's form, a tall figure in a long dark coat, its face hidden under a hood. Then, in the next flash, it was gone, vanished into the swirling rain outside. Jessica lay on the floor, chest heaving, tears mixing with raindrops on her cheeks. She grabbed her knees and pulled them to her chest, rocking back and forth as she tried to calm the storm inside her. After what felt like 100 heartbeats, she found her phone on the couch cushion and dialed 911 with trembling fingers. The operator's calm voice gave her instructions to stay by the door and keep safe until help arrived. She crawled over to the couch and sat upright, pressing her back against the cushions. Moments later, she heard sirens in the distance, growing louder, then softer as they passed her house. She waited, listening to the rain and the wind, until finally a knock came at her front door. "Jessica." It was Officer Ruiz's voice, kind and steady. "It's okay, we're here." She unlocked the door, and 2 officers rushed in, flashlights cutting through the dark. They checked every room, living room, kitchen, hallway, until they found the smashed window. Glass lay like fallen snow across the floor. Outside, the rain had washed some of it away, but bits still glinted on the threshold. "He's gone," Officer Ruiz said, kneeling beside the window. "But we'll patrol the area. Did you see which way he ran?" Jessica shook her head, voice barely a whisper. "No, He offered a gentle hand on her shoulder. "We'll get you through this. You're safe now." The officers took her statement and left a report for later. As they left, the wind died down, and the rain slowed to a gentle patter. The house was quiet again, but Jessica could still feel the empty space where the shape had stood. She walked to the window and peered outside. The yard was soaked, the grass flattened by the storm. In the distance, the church bell tolled midnight, its deep notes echoing across Redwood Hollow. Jessica pressed her palm to the cold glass, the chill seeping into her skin. She swallowed hard and turned away. In the living room, she discovered the torn pieces of her father's letter scattered on the rug. She knelt and gathered them, smoothing the damp edges. Even in pieces, the handwriting made her heart ache. She folded them carefully and slipped them into her pocket. Tomorrow she would piece them back together if she dared. The next morning, sunlight streamed weakly through the clouds. Jessica woke on the couch, curled under a blanket she must have pulled over herself when the storm passed. Her head throbbed, and she realized she'd fallen asleep in her clothes. She rubbed her eyes and sat up, shaking out her damp hair. She moved through her house slowly, checking every lock twice before stepping outside. The yard looked peaceful under the pale sun, but Jessica's mind stayed on the shape. Who was it? Why come after her? She pinched her arm to make sure she wasn't dreaming. It hurt, so it was real. Determined not to let fear win, she decided to visit the library. There, among her books, she felt stronger, as if every story ever told stood behind her, ready to fight. At the library, Mara was waiting, pacing between the shelves. "Jessica!" Mara rushed forward and hugged her tight. "Are you okay? I heard about last night." Jessica hugged her back, grateful for the warmth. "I'm all right, just shaken." Mara led her to their usual table. "Tell me everything." Jessica recounted the broken window, the dark shape tearing the letter. Mara's eyes grew wide. "We need to figure out who did this. Call the police. Get a restraining order if you have to." "I will," Jessica said. Then she paused. "But first I need to know why now. After 33 years, why send that letter and then come for me?" Mara looked worried. "Maybe someone wants you gone. Maybe it's more than your dad's doing." Jessica frowned. Shadows flickered across the walls as a cloud passed over the sun. She shivered. "But who? And how do I stop them?" Mara reached out. "We'll find out. You're not alone." For the rest of the day, they searched records, old newspapers, anything that might explain the threat. Jessica discovered an old foreclosure notice on her childhood home in Redwood Hollow Estates, an unpopular development with winding roads and empty lots. It showed a debt of $5,000 years ago that had never been paid. That house had cost her mom her life savings when she died. Jessica's father had blamed her mom's family for the loss and vanished soon after, leaving Jessica and her mom's memory behind. A chill ran down Jessica's spine. The pieces were clicking together. The money, the blame, the letter. But the shape, could it be her father's doing? Or someone else seeking revenge for that old debt? That evening, Jessica went back to her house to find the torn letter pieces. She laid them out on the kitchen table under a bright lamp. Each piece fit like a puzzle, her father's handwriting forming the chilling command not to come to the reunion. She taped them together. As she smoothed the last crease, she saw something new. A tiny symbol in the corner of the page, an intricate swirl that looked like an old family crest. Her breath caught. That crest belonged to her mother's side of the family, the Whitfields, people she had thought kind and loving. Why would her father use their symbol? Was it a warning? A message? She grabbed her coat and drove to the old Whitfield estate on Cedar Lane. The house sat empty, shuttered windows and a for sale sign leaning in the overgrown yard. She climbed the porch steps and knocked on the front door. No answer. Inside, dust coated every surface and broken glass littered the floor. But on a side table, she found a small wooden box. Inside was a faded photograph of her parents, her mother smiling, her father standing behind her, arms crossed, sour-faced. On the back was scrawled, "Remember us as we were." The sight made Jessica's chest tighten. Suddenly, she heard a creak upstairs, footsteps on old wooden stairs. Jessica's heart seized. She hid behind a dusty armchair and peered around the corner. A figure stood at the top of the stairs, silhouetted by moonlight through a broken window. It was not her father, but someone else, slim, wearing a leather jacket, hair tied back. The person's breath was steady, but their stance told Jessica they were ready for trouble. Warm blood rushed through Jessica's ears. She should run, call the police again, but something held her there. Curiosity, fear, and need for answers. The figure moved down the stairs, each step deliberate. Jessica's mind raced. What if this was the one who sent the letter, or the shape from last night? The figure reached the bottom of the stairs and stepped into the pale moonlight shining through the door. Jessica could see their face now. Sharp features, cold eyes that looked strangely familiar. Her heart pounded. They raised a hand, pointing at the photo in her hand. Jessica's breath caught in her throat, and she dropped the picture. It fluttered to the floor. The figure smiled, a slow, cruel smile, and whispered, "You should have stayed away, Jessica." Before she could react, the figure lunged, and everything went dark. Jessica's vision swirled in darkness, the cold floor pressing into her cheek. Her heart pounded so loud she feared it would burst free. She tried to move, but her arms felt heavy as if weighted by stones. The last thing she remembered was the figure's sharp breath on her face and that cruel smile. Now, muffled voices echoed above her, and the scent of damp would mixed with mildew made her stomach twist. When she finally blinked, pale moonlight filtered through cracked windows, revealing dusty furniture and broken glass. The wooden floor was splintered in places, and the wallpaper peeled in curled strips. Her head throbbed, and her mouth tasted of rust. She tried to sit up, but something held her wrists together. Thick rope knotted tight behind her back. Fear surged. Who had done this? How had they known where she was? She strained to remember how she got here. She must have blacked out when the figure lunged. Now she was trapped alone in the empty Whitfield house, the same place her parents had once lived. A single soft footstep sounded above her, then another. Jessica swallowed hard. "Hello." Her voice sounded small and thin. No answer. She pulled at the rope, but it didn't budge. The only way forward was up the stairs, but she couldn't move her arms. She tilted her head to look around for anything she could use. A broken chair leg, a shard of glass. But the rope cut into her wrist so tightly that even turning her head hurt. She closed her eyes, drawing on the calm she'd learned from those children at the library. Breathe in, breathe out. She focused on the steady beat of her heart until the fear dulled enough to think. She needed a plan. Footsteps came down the stairs. Jessica heard the scrape of shoe on wood. Slow and deliberate. She opened her eyes and saw the same leather-jacketed figure standing in the doorway. Their face was half hidden under a tangled mess of hair, but their eyes glinted with something like triumph. "Well, look who's awake," they said, voice low and mocking. I wondered how long it would take. Jessica's pulse raced. "Who are you? What do you want?" The figure laughed softly. "I'm just someone who cares about family." They stepped closer, and Jessica saw a flash of recognition, eyes that reminded her of someone she once knew, someone whose voice she'd heard on the phone. But she couldn't place it. "Why are you doing this? What does my dad have to do with it?" Jessica's throat ached as she spoke. The figure's smile faded. "Your father, he owes a debt that reaches deep into the Whitfield past." They tapped the photograph again, the one she still clutched, even though she dropped it earlier. He tried to erase that past, to bury it under money and lies. But some debts, they don't go away. Jessica's mind raced back to the foreclosure papers. Her mother's savings lost, the house sold off, and her father disappeared with bitterness in his eyes. She'd blamed him for everything, but now, was there more to it? "You're one of them," she whispered. "The Whitfields. You want revenge for my dad hurting your family." The figure's eyes flashed. "Something like that. This is just the beginning." They turned and left the room without another word. The house dropped into silence again, so deep it rang in Jessica's ears. She listened, no footsteps, no voices, only the drip of water from a leaky roof and the harsh rasp of her own breathing. She had to get free. She shifted her weight, trying to loosen the rope around her wrists. Her fingers grazed the edge of something cold metal. She flexed her fingers, and there it was, a nail or a sharp piece of metal embedded in the floorboard. Carefully, she edged her hands toward it, pressing her wrists against the sharp edge. Pain lanced through her skin, but she bit down on her lip and stayed still. With a sickening sound, the rope frayed and gave way. She let her arms drop and rubbed her wrists to chase away the numbness. Gathering her courage, she stood, feeling dizzy. The floor slanted slightly toward the stairs. She moved toward the door, every sense alert. At the top of the stairs, the shadows shifted, and she thought she heard voices. One familiar, gentle. Mara's voice calling her name. "Mara!" she whispered, hope flaring in her chest. She sprinted up the stairs, stumbling as the boards creaked underfoot. At the second landing, she found Mara and Officer Ruiz, both holding flashlights. "Jessica!" Mara cried, rushing forward. "Are you okay?" She threw her arms around her friend. Officer Ruiz cuffed the figure, whose hands were hidden in their own pockets. "Don't move," he ordered. "You're under arrest." Mara and Jessica helped each other steady as Ruiz read the figure their rights. The masked person looked down at their cuffed hands and spat on the floor. Then they sighed and removed the hood, revealing a woman with dark hair and familiar green eyes. Jessica froze. Tina? Tina Whitfield. It was her childhood friend's older sister, someone she'd visited at summer picnics, someone who'd laughed and splashed in the creek. Jessica's mind reeled. Why? Why would you do this? Tina glared, bitterness twisting her features. Because my family lost everything when your father foreclosed on our home. While we stood on the street, watching our mother cry, your father was living in comfort. He stole our future, and you think a simple letter is enough. Jessica's chest tightened. I hated him too, but this, you could have come to talk. You could have asked for help. Tina shook her head, tears shining in her eyes. He wasn't listening, so I tried to make him listen. Mara stepped forward, breaking into her house, tying her up. This is not justice. It's violence. Tina's shoulders drooped. I just wanted him to feel the pain. Officer Ruiz led Tina away. Jessica sank to her knees, trembling. The room felt too big, too empty without the echo of Tina's footsteps. She wrapped her arms around herself, tears slipping down her cheeks. Later, at the police station, Jessica gave her statement. Mara sat beside her, squeezing her hand. I'm sorry, Jessica whispered. Mara shook her head. Nothing to be sorry for. You did the right thing, getting help, staying strong. That night, Jessica went home and lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling. The window rattled in its frame as a soft wind blew. She thought of her father's letter, now a shred of paper with the first words of revenge. She thought of Tina and the debt that stretched back generations. And she thought of herself, caught between love and anger, justice and mercy. The next day, she visited the Whitfield family plot in the old cemetery behind Redwood Hollow Elementary School. She knelt at her mother's grave and placed fresh flowers on the stone. I'm sorry my family hurt yours, she whispered to the silent stones. I want to make things right. A sudden gust of wind swept across the headstones, sending petals flying. Jessica pulled her coat tighter and looked around. The sky had darkened, clouds gathering like an angry crowd. She shivered and stood. She knew her next step was to confront her father, to demand answers face to face. But when she got home, there was no letter waiting in the mailbox. Instead, on her doorstep lay a small, battered box wrapped in brown paper. No return address. Her name scrawled in that same neat handwriting she recognized so well. Jessica's heart raced as she knelt and untied the twine. Inside was a single photograph. Her standing in front of the library, smiling at the camera, radiating warmth. Underneath, a note. You can't save everyone. Sometimes you have to burn the past away. The ink was smudged, as if written in a hurry. Before she could think, the lights flickered and went out. The house plunged into darkness. Jessica's breath caught in her throat. She reached for her phone and felt its battery was dead. Her pulse hammered. Then she heard it, the unmistakable hiss of liquid pouring across the hardwood floor. She dropped to her knees, hands probing the darkness. A strong smell of gasoline filled the air. Jessica's blood ran cold. She scrambled toward the door, yanking at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. The sound of a lighter striking would came from the corner. The match struck, the flame flickered to life, and the gas ignited in a sudden roar. Flames licked up the walls, illuminating the room in a hellish orange glow. Heat washed over Jessica's face as she pressed her back against the door, tears streaming down her cheeks. She screamed, the fire crackling and spreading fast. Jessica's scream echoed as the flames roared around her. Heat pressed in from all sides, making her chest tight. She stumbled over her own feet, coughing as smoke filled her lungs. The door wouldn't budge. Tears blurred her vision, but she forced herself to keep moving. She threw herself against the window where the fire had not yet reached. Panicked, she kicked at the glass until it cracked, then punched through the jagged edges to reach the porch outside. Flames chased her as she tumbled from the window. She landed hard on the wet grass, rolling away just before the wall behind her collapsed in a shower of sparks. She lay on her side for a moment, gasping, so covering her hair and face. The fire behind her raged, the orange glow lighting up the night sky. A voice called her name. Officer Ruiz emerged from the smoke and haze, pulling her to her feet. Mara was right behind him, her eyes wide with worry. Mara's arms wrapped around Jessica, holding her tight. Jessica could feel tears running down her cheeks. Tears of relief that she was alive, and tears of sorrow for everything she had lost in that burning house. Fire trucks screamed onto the street, ladders and hoses uncoiling as firefighters plunged into the flames. Water arced through the air and hit the house in great curtains, steam rising where the liquid met fire. Jessica watched as the roof sagged and windows shattered, then felt Officer Ruiz's firm hand on her shoulder. "You're safe now," he said. "Let's get you checked out." Mara led Jessica to the ambulance parked on the lawn. Inside, a paramedic gently cleaned soot from her face and checked her for burns. Jessica winced as cold packs were pressed against red skin on her arms and neck. But she felt grateful that it was only minor burns, nothing that would scar forever. As the ambulance doors closed, Jessica looked back once more. The Whitfield house, her mother's old home, the place where her family's past had burned and smoldered, was now a crumpled husk of blackened wood and melted glass. Even in ruin, it stood as a monument to all the pain she and Tina and their families had carried. She knew she would have to face that pain again, but not tonight. At the hospital, they cleaned her wounds, wrapped her arms in sterile gauze, and gave her medicine for the smoke in her lungs. She lay in the bed, exhausted, as Mara sat beside her, reading aloud from a silly book they used to share as kids. Jessica managed a watery laugh when Mara's voice cracked at the funny parts. For the first time since the letter, she felt safe enough to rest. The next morning, sunlight peeked through the blinds. Jessica blinked awake, her throat still sore from the smoke. The room smelled like antiseptic and fresh linen. A soft knock came at the door. Officer Ruiz stepped in, carrying a small envelope. "Just got this for you," he said gently. "Mara said you might want it." Jessica reached for the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of crisp paper, her father's handwriting again. She unfolded it with trembling fingers. "Jessica, I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. Meet me where it all began, by the old maple tree at sunrise. Come alone." Her heart twisted. Was it a trap? Or a chance to finally hear his side of the story? She pressed the note to her chest and closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of the fields behind their old home, where her mother used to pick wildflowers. The memory felt gentle, a single thread of calm in all the chaos. That afternoon, Mara helped her up from the bed and wheeled her into the hospital garden. The roses were in bloom, and a cool breeze carried their sweet scent. Jessica closed her eyes, letting the sun warm her face. For the first time in days, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this meeting could bring answers. Maybe it could bring peace. But deep down, she knew she needed a plan. She called Tom, her cousin in TechWiz, and asked him to track her father's phone. He sent her a text with coordinates, exactly where the old maple tree stood, halfway between Redwood Hollow Estates and the church. She mapped the route and packed a small bag, water, a first aid kit, her phone charger, and the remaining fragments of her father's letters neatly taped together. That evening, Jessica lay back in her hospital bed, restless. The ceiling fan turned overhead, whispering in the quiet. She thought of Tina in jail, the flames that nearly killed her, and the note in her pocket. She drifted into a light sleep, and then woke with a start at a faint sound. It was the soft creak of the door latch. Jessica sat up, heart thudding. The room was dim, the lights on a low timer. She blinked into the shadows and saw a dark shape slip inside. Her breath caught. She tried to call out, but her voice was gone. The figure moved closer, silent and deliberate. Jessica saw the leather jacket. It was the same kind Tina wore. Cold dread crept up her spine. The figure reached into their pocket and pulled out a small, square block wrapped in wax paper. They placed it gently on the side table. Jessica recognized it instantly. A piece of her mother's old locket shattered. She backed away, panic flooding her. The figure said nothing, only pointed at the locket piece, then at Jessica, and then toward the door. It was a silent command. Follow if you want answers. And then the figure melted into the shadows and disappeared before she could blink. Jessica's heart pounded as she stared at the locket piece. It was one half of her mother's cherished keepsake, lost since the foreclosure, torn apart by hate and grief. Now it was here in her hospital room, calling her into the night. She knew what she had to do. At first light, she would slip out of the hospital and follow the clue. Whatever waited at the next stop would bring her closer to her father and to the truth behind years of secrets. But as the first pale light of dawn touched the window, she heard another sound, faint but clear, the distant toll of church bells echoing across the silent town. And then a low rumble beneath her bed, as if something enormous was stirring in the earth itself. Jessica's blood ran cold. She realized this was only the beginning. Behind every answer lay another question and another danger. She clutched the locket piece and whispered to the empty room, "I'm coming, Dad. I'll find you." And somewhere outside the hospital, in the shadowed streets of Redwood Hollow Estates, a dark silhouette watched her through the window, a twisted smile spreading across its face. The first light of dawn crept through the hospital blinds as Jessica lay in her bed, clutching the broken locket piece. Her heart raced, but she forced herself to breathe slowly. Yesterday's fire still pulsed in her memory, flames and smoke that almost took her life. Now, a new mystery waited outside. She knew the hospital corridors would be quiet this early, so she sat up and swung her legs over the side of the bed. Her arms ached where they had burned, but she tested them gently and found she could move. She glanced at the door. It was unlocked. Mara must have left it that way. She slipped out of her gown and into her own clothes, wincing as the fabric brushed her tender skin. She tucked the locket piece into her pocket and patted her phone, hoping it had enough charge to guide her. Then she crept down the hallway. The nurse's station was dark. A lone cleaning cart stood by the wall, its soft wheels squeaking as Jessica passed. She heard her own footsteps and the distant beep of monitors. At the elevator, she pressed the button and waited, trying not to think about the figure outside her window last night. The doors dinged open, and she rode down in silence, counting each floor, 543. On the ground floor, the lobby was empty. Sunlight spilled through the front doors, and she could see the rose garden beyond. She slipped out and pulled the doors closed behind her. The air smelled like cement and fresh rain. Jessica glanced back through the glass at the empty hospital, then turned toward the street. Tom's text had given her coordinates for the old maple tree. The point lay halfway along Cedar Creek Road, on a small hillside between Redwood Hollow Estates and the church. It was only 3 miles away, but Jessica knew she could not drive. Her car was in the impound lot after the fire, and she could not leave the hospital without risking more trouble. Instead, she decided to walk along the quiet roads. She passed the pharmacy where she once worked part-time, the sign still reading Redwood Pharmacy. A woman rested on the front steps, sipping coffee. Jessica gave her a small wave, and the woman smiled back, though she looked puzzled by Jessica's hospital gown and battered appearance. Jessica smiled and walked on, feeling a flicker of warmth from the friendly face. Soon she reached Cedar Creek Road. The pavement was cracked, grass pushing up through the edges. On one side, neat rows of houses in Redwood Hollow Estates stood in pastel colors, blue, yellow, pale pink, each with a tidy lawn and white picket fence. On the other side, a narrow dirt path wound up the hillside toward the old maple tree. Jessica took the dirt path. The ground was soft under her shoes, and morning light filtered through young oaks and birches. Birds sang, and the breeze whispered through the leaves. For a moment, the world felt peaceful, and Jessica let herself believe she might find answers today. About halfway up the hill, she spotted fresh footprints in the soft earth, tall boot prints moving toward the tree. She followed them eagerly, heart pounding. Then she saw the tree, wide branches stretching like protective arms, its bark dark and furrowed. At its base lay a small wooden box, just big enough to hold a letter or photograph. Jessica knelt and reached for the box. It was the same style as the one she found in the Whitfield house. Her fingers trembled as she unwrapped the twine and lifted the lid. Inside was a single envelope, plain white, with her name in neat handwriting. She slid out the letter and read, "My dear Jessica, if you truly seek the truth, follow the path we walked with your mother. Meet me at the creek where she sang. Trust no one else." There was no signature. Her mind raced. The creek where her mother sang. That was the little bridge behind the church, where the water ran over smooth stones. She remembered walking there with her mother as a girl, listening to her hum old lullabies. Jessica folded the note and slid it into her pocket. Then she stood looking around. Suddenly, a soft crunch sounded behind her. She spun and saw Mara stepping onto the path, eyes wide with worry and relief. "Jess, there you are!" Mara called, rushing forward. She spotted the box in Jessica's hand. "What is that?" "It's another clue," Jessica said, her voice trembling with excitement and fear. "Someone is leading me to the creek." Mara nodded. "Let's go together." They hurried down the path, past neat lawns and white fences, until they reached the churchyard. The stone church loomed above them, its bell tower tall against the sky. At the back, a little wooden bridge crossed Cedar Creek, its water murmuring over mossy stones. Jessica's memory flooded back, her mother singing as she washed wildflowers in a white basin, humming lullabies that warmed her heart. They crept onto the bridge. Jessica's eyes scanned the ground. Near the railing lay another small wooden box. She picked it up and opened it. Inside was a single photograph of her mother, standing in a field of daisies, smiling at the camera. Her mother's eyes sparkled with life. Underneath the photo was another note. "Find the place of ashes where the past lies buried." Jessica frowned. The place of ashes was at the ruin of the Whitfield house. It had burned down, leaving only charred wood and blackened bricks. Or was it the site of her childhood home, the house her father sold after her mother died? That house never caught fire, but had been torn down years ago. Mara squeezed Jessica's hand. It must be the old Whitfield estate. Jessica nodded. "Let's go." They left the churchyard and followed Cedar Creek Road east, toward the burned ruin. The path took them back under tall oaks, the sun bright now overhead. Jessica felt a mix of dread and hope. Each clue brought her closer to her father and closer to danger. They reached the old Whitfield property just as the ruin came into view. The charred skeleton of the house lay in a field of scorched grass. Blackened beams jutted into the sky like broken ribs. Small weeds had begun to grow around the edges, but the ruin still looked fresh and empty. Jessica approached the wreckage, caution in every step. She spotted a flat stone where the ashes had fallen, soft gray cinder underfoot. Kneeling, she brushed her fingers through the ash. Something glinted there, a silver key, tarnished and flecked with black soot. She lifted it, turning it over in her hand. "A key," she whispered. "But what does it open?" Mara scanned the ruin. "Your father's old desk at your house? Or maybe the box he kept under the floorboards?" Jessica's heart leapt. In her childhood home, her father had a desk with secret compartments. He never said why, but she remembered he kept old letters and documents in it. That desk was probably still there, though the house was empty. She slipped the key into her pocket and stood. The wind stirred, lifting cuffs of her hair. Mara put an arm around her shoulders. "We're getting close," Mara said softly. "You're doing great." Jessica nodded, shivering in the morning breeze. She looked back at the ruin. The burned beams jutted overhead, creaking in the wind. It felt like the ruin was watching them, waiting. She took a deep breath. "One more stop," she said. "My house." Mara frowned. "Are you sure? It could be dangerous." Jessica's eyes hardened. "I have to know." They drove back to her old home, a small gray house on Linden Street. It looked empty, its lawn overgrown, windows dusty. Jessica's stomach tightened. Inside, the quiet wood floors and faded wallpaper felt both familiar and foreign. With Mara's help, she unlocked the front door. The house smelled of dust and old memories. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, dust motes dancing in the air. Jessica led Mara to the study, where her father's old desk stood against the wall. She knelt beside it and pulled open the drawers. Each one had empty folders and dusty papers. Then she noticed a small keyhole under the desktop. She pulled out the silver key and fitted into the lock. It turned with a soft click. The panel slid open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside lay a small, leather-bound journal, its cover worn, the pages yellowed. Jessica's hands trembled as she opened it. The first page bore her father's handwriting. To Jessica, my daughter, if you ever find this, know that I loved you even when I lost my way. Her eyes blurred as she read. The journal pages told a story she had never known. About her father's regrets, the pain he felt when he lost her mother's savings, how he blamed himself for her death. He wrote of his shame, his sorrow, and his desperate wish to make amends. He had planned a special gift, a reunion under the maple tree, to show his love. But before he could act, anger and pride took over. He left Jessica with the cruel letter. Jessica sank to her knees, tears falling onto the pages. She whispered, "Dad, why did you push me away?" Mara knelt beside her, wrapping an arm around her. "He was hurting, Jess. He tried to protect you from his own shame." Jessica nodded, though her chest ached. She flipped the pages, reading snapshots of guilt and hope. At the back was one last entry. "I will come back for you, Jessica. I promise. But I need you to find me first. Look for me where the story began." Underneath, a small map drawn in shaky lines led to a place she recognized, the old storytelling circle behind the library, where she used to sit as a child, listening to her mother and father share tales under the stars. Jessica closed the journal. She looked at Mara. One last place, the storytelling circle. Mara helped her stand. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the room. Jessica brushed the dust off her clothes and tucked the journal into her bag. She felt stronger, as if the truth had light inside it. They left the house and walked to the library. The storytelling circle was a ring of stones and logs in a secluded glade behind the building. It was quiet now, the benches empty, the grass soft underfoot. Jessica sat on a log and opened the journal again. She read the last entry aloud. "Under the stars we will meet again, and I will tell you everything." Suddenly the air turned cold. The trees rustled, though there was no wind. Jessica's heart pounded. She looked around. There, in the circle center, lay a folded letter sealed with red wax. She rose and walked toward it, every step echoing. She knelt and broke the seal, unfolding the letter. "My dearest girl, I will be here at midnight tonight. Come alone. Be brave." A chill ran down her spine. The sun dipped below the trees, and shadows lengthened around her. Jessica folded the letter and held it tight. She looked at Mara, whose eyes were wide. "Mara, I have to do this," Jessica said softly. Mara nodded. "I'll wait in the car. I'll be here if you need me." Jessica stepped into the circle, the journal under one arm, the letter in the other hand. The last traces of daylight faded, and the glade grew dark. She felt a presence behind her, as if someone was watching. She turned, but saw only trees swaying in silence. Midnight approached. Jessica sat on the cold stone bench, fingers white on the letter. She felt alone and scared, but also ready. She opened the journal and read one passage softly. "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it." Her breath came in clouds in the cool night air. Then, far above, a single bell tolled, from the church tower, marking midnight. Each note echoed long and slow. Jessica's heart leaped. She folded the journal, rose from the bench, and stepped into the center of the circle. Behind her, something moved in the darkness, a slow, deliberate step on dry leaves. Jessica's breath stopped as a tall figure stepped into the moonlight. The glow revealed her father's face, lined with years of regret, eyes filled with tears. "Jessica," he said, voice trembling, "I'm here." Before she could respond, a pair of headlights flooded the glade. Mara's car pulled up, bright lights blinding them both. Jessica squinted as the engine cut off. The door opened, and Officer Ruiz stepped out, gun drawn. "Don't move," he ordered. Jessica's father stiffened. "What is this?" Ruiz leveled the gun. "You burned her house. You almost killed her in the hospital. You're under arrest for attempted murder and arson." Jessica's heart shattered. "No," she cried. "He's my father. He's trying to fix things." Ruiz shook his head. "He set the fire. We found the gas can in his garage." Her father's face went pale. "I know," he looked at Jessica, regret in every line. "I was going to stop it. I wanted to protect you." Jessica's vision blurred. She took a step forward, mouth opening to speak. But before she could say a word, the ground beneath them groaned. The stones of the circle cracked, and a low rumble shook the trees. Jessica looked down, and gas shot from the cracks between stones, flaring into blue-white flame that shot up in a pillar of fire, surrounding the circle with burning gas. The roar was deafening. Jessica froze as the flames encircled them. Officer Ruiz shouted, "Back up!" Mara screamed, and her car horn blared in panic. The fire climbed higher, licking the trees overhead. Jessica reached for her father's hand, but the heat made her draw back. She looked at his terrified face, at Ruiz's gun, and at the spreading inferno. Her heart pounded with fear she had never known. The flames surged, closing in on the circle. Jessica screamed as the fire's roar swallowed her world. The fire roared around them, a ring of living flame that crackled and hissed as it climbed higher into the darkness. Jessica's heart pounded so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. The heat was fierce, making her skin sting through her thin jacket. Smoke curled into her eyes and mouth, choking her. She could barely see her father or Officer Ruiz through the orange blaze. "Jessica!" Mara's voice rang out over the roar. She was pressed against the front of her car, trying the handle, but it was locked. The lights inside the car blinked, but the engine wouldn't start. "We can't get in." Jessica shook her head. "No time. We have to get out of the circle." She turned to her father. He stood frozen, tears mixing with soot on his cheeks. His chest rose and fell in ragged gasps. "Dad," she cried, "take my hand." He hesitated, looking between her and the flames. Then he stepped forward toward her, but even as he moved, the fire surged, driving him back. Officer Ruiz raised his gun, ignoring the fire. "Stay back." Ruiz yelled, "I'll get you out. Stand down." But Jessica saw her father's face twist in agony. He wasn't thinking of himself, he was thinking of her. She felt a surge of love and fear. This was the moment she had dreaded, but also hoped for. The moment when reckoning came. She stepped forward, closer to the fire than she had ever been. The heat was unbearable. She shielded her eyes. "Dad, please." She reached out again. Her father's eyes met hers, and in that instant, everything else fell away. The flames, the smoke, the gun, the roar of the fire. There was only her and him, father and daughter, bound by love and pain many years old. He reached out, grasping her hand. His fingers were cold despite the heat. "Jessica," he said, voice raw. "I'm so sorry." She tightened her grip. "I know," she whispered. "I forgive you." But before they could move, the ground trembled beneath their feet, a deep vibration that shook the circle. The stones groaned, and more gas jets erupted from cracks in the earth, sending new plumes of flame spiraling skyward. The fire pillar blazed brighter, embedding them in a furnace of flame. Jessica felt the earth shift. A deep crack opened near her feet, and she stumbled, jerking her father off balance. He lurched forward, dragging her with him. The flames flickered across his coat, searing his sleeves. He yanked her back, yanking her away from the worst of it, but a spark caught his hair. He cried out, and Jessica screamed too. Officer Ruiz fired into the air. "Move! Get out now!" He kicked at the edge of the circle, trying to break through. but the stones and earth seemed fused by the heat. Mara finally pried her car door open and scrambled out, her eyes wild. She grabbed Jessica's other hand. "We have to go," she yelled. Jessica and her father stumbled forward, guided by Mara's grip. But the flames closed in, and they were hemmed between the fire and the church wall behind them. The church's stone facade offered some safety from the blaze, but the asphalt at the circle's edge was melting under the heat. Something heavy crashed behind them. Jessica glanced back and saw part of the broken bench tumbling into the fire, embers dancing where it landed. Sparks drifted upward, lighting the dark sky like fiery embers. Her father's voice was fierce now. "Jessica, go. Get out with Mara." He shoved her gently toward Mara and Ruiz. "Run." Jessica hesitated, her hand still in his. "I'm not leaving you." He shook his head, tears flowing freely. "I need to stop this." He loosened his grip. "Be safe, please." She fought tears. "No." But Officer Ruiz grabbed her arm. "Listen to me now." Mara wrapped her arms around Jessica and yanked her backward. Jessica tore her gaze from her father as the flames surged again. She stumbled away, held by Mara and Ruiz, leaving her father behind. She heard his last words carried on the fire-warmed wind. "I love you always." Then the ground shook again, harder this time. A thick tongue of flame burst from the crack where her father had been standing. The fire pillar folded inward, then exploded outward in a curtain of sparks and heat that threw Jessica to the ground. She gasped for breath, ears ringing, heart breaking. Mara and Ruiz scrambled to help her. They dragged her away from the circle, backing toward the shadow of the car. Ruiz shouted orders into his radio. "Get the fire trucks back here. We've got a gas leak under the storytelling circle. Evacuate the area, everyone back." Mara knelt beside Jessica, pressing a hand to her back. "Jess, are you okay?" She nodded, tears streaming. I left him." Mara's eyes were filled with tears. "We'll go back for him once they put out the fire, I promise." Jessica shook her head, gripping her knees. "I don't know. I can't. I'm sorry." Ruiz knelt on the other side. "Miss Thompson," he said, using her mother's maiden name for the report, "we need to move you away. The ground could collapse." They pulled Jessica into the car's back seat and buckled her in. Mara fumbled with her keys, but the engine refused to start in the smoke-choked air. Ruiz pounded on the hood. "Start it now," he shouted. Mara snapped the engine on, and the car shuddered to life. She slammed it into gear, and they roared down the road, the firelight burning in their rear-view mirror. Jessica pressed her face against the window, watching the circle burn and the flames twist into the sky like angry fingers. She closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. The smoke drifted in through the open window, and she coughed. Mara passed her water, and she drank gratefully. Ruiz drove with the headlights dimmed, cautious of the fire trucks and emergency vehicles racing toward the blaze. They stopped a half-mile down the road where the pavement was unburned. The hills and forest around them were quiet again, the only sound the crackle of emergency radios coming through Ruiz's shoulder speaker. He stepped out and spoke to a firefighter, then returned to the car. "Jess," he said quietly, "the fire's under control now." They found a broken gas line under the circle, probably from an old leak nobody knew about. "They're putting it out, but your father, we didn't find him in the circle." Jessica's breath caught. He's gone." Ruiz shook his head. "We searched as best we could, but when the ground caved in near the rocks, the flames swallowed that side. I'm sorry." Her stomach dropped. She closed her eyes, picturing him engulfed in flame, the heat, the crackling wood, his outstretched hand. She shook her head, pain twisting her features. Mara put an arm around her. "It's not over," she whispered. Jessica looked at her hollow-eyed. "What do you mean?" Ruiz spoke up. "There was another figure at the edge of the fire, someone in a dark coat watching. They disappeared when the firefighters arrived. We think someone else set the gas on fire to trap you both. Jessica's heart thundered. Someone set him up? Ruiz nodded. I'm running plates on the car that appeared near the circle. It wasn't yours or Mara's. And we have witness statements about a stranger in a hood. Jessica's mind reeled. So someone wanted me dead and they wanted Dad to die too. Ruiz put a gentle hand on her shoulder. We'll get to the bottom of it. But right now, you need rest and you need answers. That night, back at her new apartment, Mara's spare room, Jessica sat at the small kitchen table, the journal open in front of her and her father's folded letter on top. The entries in the journal spoke of hope and forgiveness, but now she wondered if they were his true feelings or words written under pressure. If someone else had set the fire, did her father really care? Or was he just another player in this twisted game of revenge? Mara brought her hot tea. I checked the local news, she said softly. They're calling it Mysterious Blaze at Old Storytelling Circle. They haven't named suspects yet. Jessica sipped the tea, the warmth spreading through her chest. I can't tell anyone else about the journal, she said. It's too dangerous. Mara nodded. Okay, but we need a safe place for it. And for you. Jessica closed the journal and wrapped it in a towel. I'm scared for him, she whispered. And for me. I don't know who to trust. Mara sat beside her. You have me, and we'll find the truth. Jessica nodded, gratitude and terror mingling in her chest. She thought of the hooded figure, the fire, her father's outstretched hand. And she knew there was one more place she had to go, the family reunion, if that letter still mattered. If the person manipulating everything hadn't destroyed it first. The next morning, she made a plan. She would return to the church and search the grounds before the police sealed it off. Then she would look for that stranger's car, maybe find clues in the mud or tire tracks. And then she would find her father, dead or alive, and bring him home. But as she slipped on her coat and prepared to step outside, her phone chimed. A text from an unknown number. Did you really think you could outrun the past? See you at the reunion. Or don't come. Understood. Jessica's blood ran cold. The message was short, cruel. Her father's own words twisted back at her. Someone was playing them both. She stared at the screen, fingers trembling. Then, behind her, the front door clicked shut. Jessica spun around, phone in hand, to see Officer Ruiz standing in the hallway, his eyes hard and urgent. We need to talk, he said. Before she could answer, he showed her a photograph, a picture taken from a security camera at a gas station 2 miles from the circle. In it, a dark sedan with tinted windows sat at the pump, the driver's door open. The driver was her father, alone, smiling, holding a gas canister. Next to him stood the same hooded figure, holding a match. Jessica's breath caught. She stared at the photo, heart pounding. Ruiz's voice was low. He wasn't the victim. He was part of it. For a moment, the world tilted. Jessica's mind reeled, her father part of the plot all along. The words on the photo, the fiery puzzle, the betrayal of trust. She closed her eyes, feeling the floor drop away. When she opened them, the room was spinning. The gas station lights in the photo seemed to flicker in her mind. The hooded figure's face hidden, the car's tinted windows reflecting nothing but darkness. In that moment, Jessica realized the ultimate betrayal. The man she thought was innocent, the man she loved, had lied to her every step of the way. She dropped the journal. It hit the floor with a soft thud, pages splaying open. And beneath the last entry, in her father's shaky handwriting, was a single line she had never seen before. I did it for us. Understood. Jessica screamed as the words burned into her mind. Jessica stood frozen, staring at the photo in Officer Ruiz's hand. Her father, smiling at a gas pump, standing beside the hooded figure. The pieces finally fit together in a way that hurt her heart. She had believed he was a victim. Now, She didn't know what to believe. Her legs felt weak. She sank onto the sofa in Mara's apartment, her mind spinning. "He was part of it," she whispered. "He did it for us." The words echoed in her head like a dark song. Mara knelt beside her, pulling her into a gentle hug. "We'll sort this out, Jess. We will." But Jessica could feel Mara's worry. Everything had changed. The next morning, sunlight peeked between the blinds. Jessica woke with a heavy ache in her chest. She opened her phone and reread the text from the unknown number. "See you at the reunion." Or "Don't come. Understood." Those words had become a cruel echo of her father's handwriting. She knew what she had to do. The family reunion was that afternoon at the church grounds. It was the place her father had warned her not to come. Now it was the place where she might find the real truth. Mara agreed to go with her. Officer Ruiz would secure the area so it was safe. Together, they drove to the church, Jessica gripping the journal in her lap. Each turn of the road felt like a slow march toward a trap, but she felt more steady than ever before. She had to see it through. At the church lawn, the tables and chairs were set up exactly as they would have been if people were coming. Plates of cookies and pitchers of lemonade sat ready. The air smelled of fresh grass and old stone. Jessica's stomach twisted. She half expected to see her father waiting there, smiling, but the circle of folding chairs was empty. Officer Ruiz stood near the entrance, his hand on his radio. "I cleared it," he said softly. "No sign of the hooded figure, no sign of your father. But there are cameras hidden in the eaves. We'll catch whoever comes." Jessica nodded, drawing a shaky breath. She set the journal on one of the tables and opened to the last entry. "Under the stars, we will meet again, and I will tell you everything." It was written for Jessica, but she was here in the day, under the sun. She looked around and saw Tom walking toward her. Mara slipped her arm through Jessica's. Tom's eyes were red from lack of sleep. He held a small folder. "I found something," he said. "I dug into the gas station footage and your father's phone records. The key detail is this." He handed her a printed image of a phone map with pins and lines. He wasn't alone that day. He met someone before he filled the canister. Someone whose number isn't saved in his phone. Jessica stared at the map. A pin was at the Whitfield ruin, another at the hospital, another at a remote cabin by the lake. The cabin pin had no timestamp. "He went there after the fire," she whispered, "which means he was with someone else. Someone planning it all." Tom nodded. "I traced the cabin owner to Mrs. Garvey from town. She and your father used to work together at the pharmacy. She was your father's colleague and family friend." Jessica's chest tightened. Mrs. Garvey was gentle and kind, the one who had taught her to read pills and measure medicine when she was a child. Why would she be part of this? Before she could ask more, a car pulled onto the grass near the church. A black sedan, tinted windows, the same make as the one in the gas station photo. Jessica's heart leapt. The hooded figure stepped out. The air felt heavy, as if the sky was holding its breath. Officer Ruiz moved forward, hand on his holster. Mara gripped Jessica's arm. Tom stood by her side, eyes wide. The figure walked toward Jessica in slow, deliberate steps. The sun glinted off a silver ring on the person's hand. Jessica's breath caught as the hood fell back. It was Mrs. Garvey. She pulled off her sunglasses, her hair loose around her shoulders, her eyes calm but fierce. "Jessica," she said, her voice soft. "I knew you would come." Jessica's mind whirled. "Why, Mrs. Garvey? Why did you do all this?" Mrs. Garvey looked around at the empty chairs. "It wasn't just your father who hurt us," she said, voice shaking. "It was your whole family. When they lost the pharmacy, I lost everything. I tried to get help, but they refused. Your father was supposed to protect the family business. He let it fail, and he let your mother's money vanish. I loved your mother, Jessica. She trusted me." Tears welled in Jessica's eyes. "But you set fires. You tried to kill me. You lied to me." Mrs. Garvey's eyes filled too. I was angry. I was in pain. I thought if I made him feel that pain, he would come back to make things right. I thought I could fix it all. She turned to Officer Ruiz. I admit it. I did it. I set the fire at the ruin to get the key, I broke into her house, and I planted that first letter in her mailbox. I wanted her to come to the reunion and face him. Officer Ruiz stepped forward, cuffing her. Mrs. Garvey, you're under arrest for arson, attempted murder, and breaking and entering. As he led her away, Jessica felt a strange emptiness. The person behind the attacks was someone she had trusted. She closed her eyes and let the sun warm her face. Tom walked up and handed her the journal. He's out there, he said quietly. Your father is waiting. He sent that last note from the cabin. Jessica nodded. She looked at Mara. I need to go there. Alone. Mara squeezed her hand. I'll be right behind you. Officer Ruiz leaned in. We'll escort you. But after that, I want you both to come straight to the station. Jessica agreed. She felt a strong calm inside her, like the words from her father's journal guiding her. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. They piled into Mara's car and drove toward the lake. The road wound past fields of golden wheat and tall green pines. Jessica stared out the window, the journal open on her lap. She read the last map coordinate, the cabin at Pine Ridge Lake, not a fancy retreat, but an old, weathered cottage on wooden stilts above the water. When they arrived, the sun was low in the sky, painting the water pink and orange. The cabin door stood ajar. Jessica's heart pounded like a drum. She stepped out of the car with Mara and Ruiz. The boards creaked under their feet as they approached the porch. Inside, the cabin was simple. A small table, 2 chairs, and a single lamp on a writing desk. On the desk lay one final envelope, sealed with red wax. Jessica took it in trembling hands. She broke the seal and slid out the letter. My dearest Jessica, by now you know why I sent the letter. I wanted you to see the truth of my shame. I thought I could face it alone. I was wrong. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I hurt us all. If you still want to see me, come outside by the dock. I'll be waiting. Tears blurred Jessica's vision. Mara put an arm around her. Ruiz stood behind them, hand on his radio. Jessica stepped out onto the creaking dock. The lake was calm, the sky darkening. And there, at the far end, stood her father, his back to her, looking out at the water. He turned slowly when he heard her steps. His face was lined with sorrow and relief. He opened his arms. Jessica, he said, voice cracking. I was so afraid you would hate me. She took a trembling step forward. The soft lapping of the water was the only sound. Dad, she whispered. He reached out and took her hand. His skin was rough, lined with years of regret. I'm sorry for everything. I wanted to keep you safe, but I made it worse. I let Mrs. Garvey use my guilt to hurt you. I set that gas line, but I didn't light it. I thought that would snap me out of my shame. I was wrong. Jessica's heart ached as memories of the fires and betrayals rushed back, but she also felt the love that had always been there, hidden under guilt and fear. I forgive you, she said softly, tears falling. He pulled her into a gentle hug as the sun dipped below the trees and the first stars appeared. Mara and Ruiz watched from the porch, giving them space. Jessica felt something lift in her chest. The long, painful road was finally ending. She turned her face up to the starry sky and whispered, We're together again. Understood. And in that quiet moment by the lake, with the water reflecting the stars and the cool breeze on her skin, all the anger and pain melted away, leaving only hope for the future.